Hello and welcome to Pardon the Integration. Answer your biggest HPC questions, solve your most complex problems. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson. I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. First, we have Steve Tepedino, President and CEO of IT Partners. Steve is a proven leader with extensive experience in high-tech distribution and value-added reseller markets. Since joining the company in 2014, Steve has been focused on accelerating the success of customers and adding more value to new and existing relationships. He's joined by Bill Cassidy, Chief Technology Officer for IT Partners. Bill is a founding member of IT Partners and as Chief Technology Officer is responsible for setting the overall technical direction for the company. He's focused on technology and solutions that will deliver IT and business value to IT Partners' customers. The way our program works is we have 3 topics to discuss, and we have 3 minutes to talk about each. You'll see a countdown clock at the bottom of your screen. The first topic, high-performance computing. The second, how are customers using high-performance computing today? And the third, partnering with HPE. So let's get started. Segment 1, high-performance computing. What is high-performance computing?
That's a great question. You can think of it as the application of what is otherwise fairly common technology, x86 compute, storage, high-speed networking, in ways that are designed to solve very complex problems that customers may be having in a lot of spaces, right? HPC is probably traditionally thought of as the domain of big national laboratories solving giant complex mathematical problems, but it's really being applied across the board today. So more and more customers are capable of leveraging this concept of HPC to solve their problems that they have in their business.
What are you talking to customers about regarding HPC?
Well, a lot of our conversations focus around 2 areas. Generally, where are they at in their adoption of HPC? And then how are they actually operating the HPC environments that they may have, right? And where they are at today might mean that they have an opportunity to significantly improve the performance of their HPC environments by looking at the technology that's available today. And in the operational space, that can be a challenge for some organizations to keep the right team in place. And we have some interesting conversations with them about how we can help them adopt a new model for managing HPC.
Who is adopting HPC today?
As I noted earlier, HPC was primarily the domain of very big organizations at the governmental level, at the university level. And today, HPC is being adopted very broadly across many industries. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that technology has really grown in performance and dropped in cost. And now folks who would normally have not thought about building an HPC cluster, whether they're in a manufacturing environment, in a healthcare environment, maybe in electronics design, they're realizing that they can actually build a powerful HPC cluster and afford to operate it themselves.
Segment 2, how are customers using high-performance computing today? How are customers delivering HPC services to their users today?
Most customers we see with an HPC adoption are generally deployed in a data center or maybe in a co-location facility, and they're both operating and delivering services to a set of internal customers, right? Many organizations have constructed an HPC center of excellence, if you will, or a dedicated team because the operation of HPC is a bit different than running a traditional IT workload that the rest of the IT organization is responsible for. And that is where we get into the challenges of being able to keep that team that special team to operate this somewhat unique technology. As we noted earlier, the technology itself is fairly common between compute and storage and networking, but the way that it's used and the way that it's actually constructed, most IT organizations don't operate water-cooled systems for general purpose workloads, but that's very common in the HPC space. And so there's generally a very specific set of skills required.
What about using public cloud for HPC?
That's a very interesting question and something we see many customers looking at today. Certainly all of the public cloud providers, the big 3 that everybody always thinks about, a lot of other very specialized HPC cloud providers are building out that capability. But HPC workloads are unique. They run 24/7. They run at 100% capacity all the time to make the most effective use of the infrastructure investments that companies have made. And that can lead to some very interesting financial models when you try to apply that to public cloud, right? And so we think people are looking primarily at how can I use public cloud services to extend my capabilities of my HPC environment? How can I use it for bursting space when I have a very special project coming up, or maybe when I want to accelerate the ability to complete a project early and I need additional capacity? You wouldn't make an investment in that additional capacity in a more capital sense, but you can leverage public cloud for that duration and then shut it off when you're done, which is a great way to use a scalable cloud service to deliver value.
And Bill, that's just a great point, because cloud services work fantastic for traditional IT workloads, but HPC workloads, as Bill points out, they just run all the time. They consume every ounce of performance and capacity available to them to run as fast as they possibly can. And so when you have spikes in workloads, or sometimes even starting out in HPC, you may not need a cluster full time. The cloud represents a fantastic opportunity to get into this space, especially again, as you think about bursting into additional capacity or starting. It's a great place to start.
How are customers maintaining and operating HPC clusters?
Yeah, as we noted, they're traditionally run in dedicated space. An HPC cluster is a very power-intensive environment. It's a very heat generating environment, as you might suspect, right? And so many organizations have leveraged co-location facilities for their HPC environments where the power is available, the chilled water is available, again, they've dedicated a team towards operating HPC because this is a unique environment. The application set is unique. The customer expectations are a little more unique than, say, your average IT workload that the rest of the organization operates. So it's generally a specialized team built in a specialized location and delivered as a kind of unique service back to the larger organization.
Segment 3, partnering with HPE. Why should HPE be the choice for HPC?
Well, that's actually a great question and an easy one to answer. So HPE is a market leader in compute, which is at the core of HPC. But HPE went one step further. Through acquisitions, they've acquired companies like Cray, which picks up intellectual property around HPC, companies like SGI, that give them market leadership from every perspective, both in the volume of how you build compute and the specialized way you deliver HPC. HPE now has market leadership in both air-cooled and liquid-cooled HPC platforms. As Bill noted earlier, it's all about performance. The way to maximize performance is keep the environment as cool as possible to maximize clock rate, maximize speed. At HPE, we can tell you which platform to go choose based on the workload you have. That's what market leadership is. You have choice to deliver performance at every price point for every workload. Another area HPE has leadership is in invention. Its water-cooled technology is theirs, which means you have a tight integration with how systems perform and how they stay cool, easy to maintain and operate too. But compute's only part of the story. It's how the network works at high speed and HPE's innovations in networking and storage. Because at the end of the day, you've got to be able to store all the wonderful, models you create, whether it's in AI or ML, where you're teaching code how to learn, or it's in manufacturing, where you're building better outcomes through devices for your organization. The way we network, the way we high-speed compute, the way we store is unique and innovative from HPE.
Why is the HPE and IT partners combination good for customers?
Well, that's always a fun question for me to answer. As we pointed out, HPE has demonstrated market leadership in fantastic technologies around HPC, and they continue to both acquire and innovate. What they use companies like IT partners for is to go to market. How do we get to every customer who could be using or potentially using HPC technologies to accelerate problem solving in the organization faster? IT partners have spent time understanding HPC environments, understanding customer environments to create that unique combination of the best technologies from HPE and the best way to consume those technologies based on where you are in your journey in building out your HPC Center of Excellence.
Steve and Bill, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we go, I'd like to list my top takeaways from this discussion. HPC is a simple concept to understand. HPC is for everyone. HPE has a flexible model of delivery. That concludes part in the integration. Answer your biggest HPC questions, solve your most complex problems. I'm Kenna Johnson. See you next time.